in my life.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello Jr.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perrin.
For anyone that's been keeping track, this is our third episode this month, which is unusual for us. We usually try to keep to 2 episodes, but every now and then we have a special episode like this. Now, Perrin, you're the one that came up with the idea of the Digital Tools Special. Why don't you tell people what they can expect tonight?
All right. The simple fact is that me and you both, Ryan, and most gamers nowadays use a lot of digital tools to help make their games easier to run and better. But our podcast, we sometimes hint at it, but we've never really gotten to dig our nails into it very much. And we were approached by a few different companies leading up to this, so we had a unique opportunity to get several of the leaders right now in the RPG digital tools to join us. So we're going to have a special roundtable panel, and we're featuring Benjamin Loomes from Syrinscape, Colen McAllister from Lone Wolf Development.
Hi.
And Nolan T. Jones from Roll20.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
Thanks for all you guys coming here. Especially, we've got people from 3 different continents represented on this podcast, so that's a rare opportunity for us. I'm actually more excited about that than I probably should be.
There is nobody in this podcast right now that shares a country with somebody else.
That's not true.
That can't be true.
Oh, wait, no.
That can't be true.
You were close, though, Perrin. And actually, Nolan is a last-minute addition, so you were almost right.
Yeah, I was almost right.
If you'd kept me out.
Well, before we go into each of your individual
products... There's only no one in Australia, I'll say that much.
Before we go into each of your individual products, we'd like to just meet you guys each as gamers. So, Benjamin, why don't you briefly tell us, how did you find your way to role-playing and Pathfinder specifically?
Fantastic. Yes, I was on holidays up camping in Smiths Lake, which is to the north of Sydney in Australia, and my parents... This is in the 80s. My parents gave me the first edition Dungeons & Dragons Red Box Basic, and it was just fantastic. With the little crayon you had to rub into the dice to make the numbers come out, and the incredibly evocative artwork, and yeah, look, I mean, I hadn't really encountered it before at all, so turning those pages and running that first adventure where the cleric like sort of takes a shine to you and says, "Hello, young man, you know, you're on an adventure. Let me look after you." I was like, "Oh my God." And the whole concept of being able to, you know, choose your own adventure and actually, you know, create what you want to and create your whole world just totally set me off. So that was in the 80s. I played some pretty basic sort of role-playing most of the way through my youth, and then took kind of a break from it when I was about 17 or so. Life and uni and school kind of got in the way. And it wasn't until sort of mid-late 20s that I started to get back into it, and that was when fantastically 3.5 had just come out. So if I had got back into role playing about 9 months earlier, I would have bought all the 3rd edition books and then sort of cursed them and had a ritual burning. But I didn't, so I was very lucky. So I played 3.5 for ages, and then yeah, when 4th edition came along, tried it out and didn't really take too much of a shine to it, and yeah, ended up playing Pathfinder, and that's absolutely, I'm a total Pathfinder tragic now. And I'll run that. My gaming group knows that I'll always run Pathfinder, no matter what. We play all sorts of games. We play Star Wars and Call of Cthulhu and Paranoia and Shadowrun and all this sort of stuff. But I'll always come back to Pathfinder. And the games that we play now are so different to when I was young. We play with way more immersion, way more storytelling. We act a lot more. There's voice acting. There's real commitment to the story. The sorts of issues we investigate. One of the things that fascinates me about the RPG world is there is actually race. So you can be racist, which is really a fascinating concept. So I'll introduce those sorts of themes. Obviously, sexism, you know, violence, love, betrayal. And my gaming group plays on a really sort of epic scale. So whatever's you know, cinematic and ridiculous and crazy, we'll go for. And yeah, I've been playing since my mid-20s and absolutely loving it.
I just realized another thing I'm going to look forward to about this podcast is learning terms that are regional. So you're a tragic? Does that mean like a hardcore gamer, or just hardcore into something?
Yes. So into it that it's probably embarrassing, and I probably shouldn't admit it, kind of thing. Yeah, tragically devoted.
I'm going to try and bring that to Canada. That's pretty awesome.
Will you translate the
one of things
terms
you
as
talked
necessary?
about
That'd be great.
Is a great example of how far technology or gaming has come technology-wise, because the original gamers had to create their own dice. The box set just had a template for the dice, and now we're playing these games with soundtracks using digital character sheets on digital battle mats. It's amazing just what is available to us now.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Ben. We'll get back to you about Syrinscape and your musical background and all that stuff. But next, I want to talk to Colen McAllister of Lone Wolf Development. Colen, Lone Wolf feels like it's been around for a long time, but what about you personally? How did you get into gaming first?
So my introduction to gaming is actually a little connected to how long Lone Wolf's been around. Back in high school, so I can never figure out the actual date, but it's sometime like mid-90s or something. I fell in with a bunch of friends who did basically all of gaming. So we got into collectible card games with Magic the Gathering, Spellfire. I don't know if any of you guys remember that one. Miniatures games, Games Workshop stuff. We started with 40K or Warhammer, then moved to the other one, then moved to every single other game Games Workshop produced as they did it, like Necromunda, Mordheim, Battlefleet Gothic, all of those. And then we mixed in some role-playing games in there as well. And so I think it started with they had just finished messing around with RuneQuest, and then they were doing AD&D Second Edition when I joined. And so that was I was playing. We were playing through the adventures with the Crystal Shard ones with Brunner Battlehammer and Dritz de Worden and so on in the Forgotten Realms. So we played along with that for a while. Then we switched to 3.5 when that came out, as we were kind of hitting college. The really good thing about all of this was that we were all in high school, and one of my friend's fathers was the GM, and so he actually had money because he was an adult with a job, and so he could actually buy all of the game books, and he could this is like the mid-90s, like photocopying character sheets. That was not possible unless you were actually an adult with a job or you had money or something like that. And so he could he could provide all those amenities. He had like this enormous library of painted miniatures in his garage, and he was kind of the we all collected around him and did all that stuff, and he GM'd the D&D, and we all played Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy. But it was we played pretty much everything for a while, and it was very enjoyable. And then
Sorry, go ahead.
Then we were playing 40K, and I had heard of this tool, Army Builder, that was meant to be coming out Warhammer Fantasy. We were playing Warhammer Fantasy, and I had heard of this tool, Army Builder, that was going to be coming out very soon, that was going to be an army creator for Warhammer Fantasy and a bunch of other games. And so I ended up being one of, I think, the first kind of couple of dozen people to buy it. I had to borrow my mom's credit card to do that. And we used that for a while. We started playing Warhammer 40K, but there wasn't any support for that game in Army Builder. So I emailed the guy behind Army Builder and said, "Hey, are you planning to add this?" And I think this was just as third edition was coming out. And so he said, "No, but are you interested in helping me out with that?" And so for a while, I then started entering all the data for Warhammer 40,000 into Army Builder, maintained those for a while. And then after I was done with college, I ended up a few years later joining the company, and that's where I've been ever since.
Now that brings us to Nolan. Nolan, I'm going to make a prediction that maybe wherever you grew up and became a gamer first, it was sparse, it was out of the way of other gamers. I'm just
it wasn't actually terribly. The funny thing is, I actually in high school was like 2 blocks away from my high school was 2 blocks away from the local gaming and comics and anime store, but I never fully got in. I played a little Magic the Gathering, but I never really got into role playing until it was really an after effect of World of Warcraft. My buddies and I were terrible World of Warcraft addicts, and as that was kind of winding down for us, and we were getting bored and frustrated with, well, I can't do this thing that I want to do, and I can't do that thing, and why doesn't the game do, exactly what my imagination for it would do? A buddy of mine was like, you you got to start playing Dungeons and Dragons, man. It's like all that stuff, but way more metal. Which that's the perfect description, right? So got into it via that and started playing, and then the after effect has been there was nothing other than Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition that I had touched in role playing until Roll20, and that was an effect of my co-founders and I had moved apart after college, and eventually we found ourselves wanting to play together again and put the system together. And with the Kickstarter, there were obviously a whole lot of people with a whole lot of different things they wanted to play, and we were like, sure. Every time we came to a design decision, instead of going, let's code this for 4th edition, it was, well, what would you need at a table so you could play whatever game you want? And as a result of that, ended up with what we're doing, and I ended up playing other games that I never would have gotten to otherwise. So, really roundabout way of doing things.
Yeah.
I think that's the most modern how'd you get into gaming that we've ever had on the podcast.
Yeah, it's amazing how different
Young
everyone's stories
whippersnappers.
are. Yeah.
Now, we do have a couple of people, well, more than a couple of people watching us live right now, and we encourage you to interact with our guests. Each one of them is a specialist in their field, so this is a rare opportunity to really get just valuable information from somebody that knows exactly what you're talking about. For example, Ben. So what we do, we don't have a chat room, but we do have a comment section on the YouTube video, so if you're watching it now, you just have to scroll down to where it says comments, post a comment there. I'll be watching the comments as we do the interviews, and I will be cherry-picking comments as they come in. Yeah, that's about it. So let's start talking a little bit more specific, starting with Syrinscape. So Benjamin, Syrinscape, why don't you give us the nutshell description of what your company is?
Syrinscape is a product that creates sound design, so background sound effects and music, just like the music that's in a movie soundtrack for tabletop role-playing games. It is designed always in mind to be extremely straightforward to use at the table and require about 2 clicks every hour or so. I really, really don't like products that take the attention of players away from the game and away from each other. So it was basically a solution to my own problems at the table, my own desire to have music and sound effects at the table back when I was, coming back into gaming, like I said, in my late 20s. I searched around for all sorts of options, playing playlists, playing movie soundtracks and things like that, some YouTube videos, and even short little mixes of 10-minute tracks that I mixed up myself with some sort of, bird roars for the forest and bird roars. That's weird, but birds don't roar in Australia, don't worry. Some bird calls and some distant roars and things, and that was working quite well. But I found that even a 10-minute, even a 20-minute track when you're playing, you tend to start to notice repetitions really, really quickly. Human beings are designed to notice patterns. That's why we do science, and that's why we can, understand the world and be so productive. So, that's sort of by the 3rd time you hear rah rah, it pretty much starts to drive your brains out of your head. So I basically just got together a programming language, chose a good programming language, and programmed something that would actually pick up samples randomly and distribute them randomly in surround sound now, in fact, and apply reverb so that if they're a long way away, they're really echoey, and you can control where the sounds go and all that sort of stuff. So Syrinscape, basically, you click spooky wood, you get a bit of a distant wind going, you get some sort of distant monsters. You can turn the monsters off, you can turn them on. You can actually set up your whole mix before you play, so that you can have a mix called "Freak My Players Out" and a mix saying "Right now you're being attacked." The music comes in and goes out sort of every now and then, just like in a movie, and yeah, it just basically adds a whole level of a soundtrack, which we all expect in computer games, and we absolutely all expect in movies. And it was kind of weirdly lacking for me, so I put it back in.
I don't understand. When I GM, I just go like swoosh when they're on a boat and like da 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 when they win combat.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, people's imaginations have been fired up by these role-playing games, and we can totally. I mean, I totally see the entire scene, even though the dungeon master says, oh, it's a rocky room with a door, and that's what our imaginations are, and that's what we're primarily about. Absolutely, tabletop role-playing. So I guess I'm just I'm trying to take that level a little bit higher. The main effect that I found of Syrinscape at my own gaming table is that it helps the immersion and really, really helps with focus at the table so that the mood stays maintained and that sort of desire to exit the game and check your iPhone for sort of the messages or whatever really goes down because everyone's caught up in the story.
Now, I've been using music in my games for a long time, and there are various different products and sound mixes that are all like static tracks. So I'm going to pull your Syrinscape up on screen here, and can you show or sort of talk to us exactly, how this improves upon like the CD and the boombox or the MP3 player?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's why I built it, because there was lots of those sorts of things available, and in fact, lots of good sound designs happening now, and people are making 10-minute tracks. Right, I can see it. How cute and pretty. So down that left-hand column, you've got a whole lot of locations essentially. Oh, you haven't got anything installed at all. That's all right. You've got all these locations.
Your computer has it installed.
So once you go to Witchwood, and you can see that basically, if your characters find themselves in a spooky forest, you just click Witchwood, and then the next column is a whole lot of presets that will set off the basically locations or setups. In that column with all the fancy little play buttons, they're all the elements of the sound design. So you've got a track that plays music. It'll pick up a music track every now and then and play it. You've got some unsettling wind, which is really virtually inaudible, but just sort of binds everything together. Then that next track is really where Syrinscape does its work. You've got growls there. In the stuff that the program downloads, you've got about sort of somewhere between 10 and 20 growls. They're all completely dry. They're really clean. So it'll just be like a rah, an actual monster. They're not just me going rah. And Syrinscape will pick up one of those growls at a randomized amount of time, which the editor sets up, so you can leave a random space between 15 seconds and 2 minutes, or between 20 minutes and half an hour, or between, really, really quickly. And it'll place that growl in surround sound somewhere around the players, or in stereo if you just got stereo. If the growl is further away, it'll be more reverberant at distance. If it's close, it'll be less reverberant, and the players will be like, "Geez, what's that? What's that growl right near us?" And so that growl element will just run. So if you just click that growl, I don't think we can hear it though. Is that right?
You'll hear it.
You'll hear it? Okay. We've got it coming through a mic. It'll sound horrendous, I'm sure. So click that, and that'll start up. And it'll just sit there and run. You see that little counter going around. When that counter reaches full, it'll just play a growl, and then it'll start counting again. And so you say you want that growl going, that'll go. You might also turn on some distant wildlife and some closer wildlife. And Syrinscape will just sit there. Oh, I heard something. And it'll run and take care of itself. You don't actually need to do that during the game. Say you've got this mix that you like. You hit that plus button there, just beneath the mood in the second column, and you type my mix, or whatever you like, really. Yep, good. And you hit save, and you've got yourself another preset there. And then those presets, so all I do as a GM is I'm in the Witchwood, I might click that and set off Syrinscape to start, or I might click nothing natural or whatever. And then suddenly, the next thing that's going to happen is bugbears are going to attack. So you just click on Bugbear Battle in the left-hand column there, and you just click Battle Begins.
One second.
Yep. Yay! And the music starts. It's a totally different mood. You've got roaring bugbears, clashing of metal, shields, musical power, and the players will know that something's absolutely going on.
Okay.
And that's the only touch you have to make while the battle's going. And then, when the battle finishes, you go back to Witchwood, and you just click, or maybe if you go to a tavern, or you go, to a town, or a dragon attacks. There's lots and lots of different locations.
Now
that's basically it.
Right?
You go, Ryan.
I was going to say those. I don't know why I start a sentence with what I was going to say. Those sounds are being filtered through the internet, so it's not quite doing the sound quality justice. But one thing that really did demonstrate well is the user interface. It's actually, first of all, it's a very pretty program, but it's also very intuitive. It's self-explanatory, and I like that very much about it.
Yeah.
I
was
worked really hard.
I was surprised how easy it was to use, just to pull up the different levels and sort of get things just how I like it. Like when I started up like the rain, I'm like, this rain is way too loud, and I really want creepy music. And I was able to adjust it. And what I really liked, a feature of it that I use a lot, is you also have those one-time sound buttons and like the little shared library at the bottom. So you got like sword clashing, you got big explosions. Then you noticed on the podcasting computer I didn't get them all installed, but I was amazed at like how many of these sound sets you guys have put out by now. And then I got down to the bottom and I noticed you even have some sci-fi ones. I was like, oh gosh, this is the Death Star, or not really the Death Star.
That's right. One of the most important sounds that we've got in those one-shots at the bottom right-hand side, which whenever we're playing Star Wars, we tend to overuse very much, is the Wilhelm scream, which if anyone's a movie aficionado, it's that sound that's in every movie. And so we have the Wilhelm scream, which is absolutely fantastic. So every stormtrooper who goes down needs to have a So yeah, it's very shameful, but I admit I've succumbed to that.
So.
Go ahead, Baron.
So, how did you come up with the ideas of how you put a theme set together? I mean, what goes into, well, we want to do something that is creepy house, and then you make something that is creepy house?
Yeah, so the creepy house sound sets came just absolutely from the users. So people ask for content all the time. You know, basically they've got a game, they want content, and I just did a interview on social media saying, tell me what you want, and the more you nag, the more likely you are to get it. And there were big votes for the spooky house set. So we've got a fantastic haunted asylum where there's this girl who's sort of this ghost girl beating on doors and saying, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," and then like it just gets worse and worse until she's screaming incoherently, and that's really quite horrendous, that set, which is fantastic. And then, yeah, some people asked for some high seas sound sets the other day. So, you know, they've got a boat game, so they email me and say, give me pirate attacks and cannons and stuff. So that's what we build. And the other thing I build for is literally just for my own game. So whatever, you know, scenarios I happen to be running, they find their way into Syrinscape. And basically, we're looking for, in a sound set, a generic kind of location. So, like, is it a city? Is it a tavern? Is it on a pirate ship? You know, is it down a dungeon? So that you can adjust that location by adjusting all those elements in the right-hand side and come up with something very quickly. I just don't want to create masses of prep time for GMs. That's the last thing I want to do. So you can come up with something really quickly, and you can, you know, just have it running, and there it is, and it just creates that whole big bed. It doesn't actually have to be that specific at the table. It's just the general vibe of the thing, and then people's imaginations adjust themselves into that location.
We're going to talk about GMing with Syrinscape in a second. I just want to remind people that we'll be moving on to Hero Lab in about 10 minutes, so you can start preparing your questions for Colen McAllister of Lone Wolf Development, and you've got another 10 minutes or so to ask Benjamin any questions you have about Syrinscape. So, Benjamin, let's say I'm a GM. I've already got a lot on my plate. How do I also add Syrinscape to the gaming experience?
That's right, yeah. So what I will do, I imagine adventure, say I ran an adventure the other day, it was sort of a twisted Little Red Riding Hood adventure. It started off in the city, you got hired to accompany this girl to go to his mother-in-law's house. The players slowly picked up when she turned up in a red outfit that she was actually Little Red Riding Hood, and like, oh, it's going to be werewolves, oh my god. So, yeah, I just basically prepared by going to the Brindletown set, which I own, and just having it ready there. I knew I was going to use a Witchwood set, and I knew I was going to use some kind of generic battle set. I turned off the clashing swords and turned up the music a bit, and I mixed in some of the thunderstorm sounds from the Storm set we have, saved that as a preset, and that's it. That's all I have to do. And so that takes, you know, about 5 minutes to do. When I get to the table, I say, you know, welcome to town, and just go click, click, and the town starts, and that's all I have to worry about. And that's really, really important to me. The music in town, there's a busker in the corner. He sort of starts playing every now and then. He doesn't play all the time. It's not track to track to track. There's actually a randomized length between the music tracks, just like in a movie. The music doesn't play the whole time. Does that answer your question?
No. Yes. Yes, you're doing fine, Benjamin. Now, what about a GM who maybe doesn't feel like they have a musical inclination? What can Syrinscape do to take that burden away from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the most important thing, if you've got a battle, you click on battle and it takes care of it. And then all you've got to make sure is that it's turned up enough so that people can hear it, and it's not turned up enough so that you end up going hoarse. Though at my table, pretty loud is pretty fun. And yeah, we're all for rolling 20s and cheering and high-fiving and everything. It's not a very dignified table, ours.
Now, when I got to use it, I usually like to poke like all the edges of the toy whenever they give me a new toy. So when I was doing some of my World Wound stuff and they were investigating one of the houses that got destroyed by demons, I would like poke the creepy house thing, and then I'm like, okay, the fight's starting. So I really liked that I could switch to the Bugbear set and play just the parts of it I wanted, whilst playing Creepy House. So the sound sets aren't all inclusive. You can mix and match them.
That's right.
But and I saw on your webpage you were talking about expanding the customization options and tools that the GMs have.
That's right. So we're sort of maybe 1 or 2 weeks away from the beta release of our editor. I use an editor to build the sound sets, which is an online, database system where I upload all the samples and then I'm basically just setting parameters. And we're building an interface for that so that people will be able to use it themselves. So then people will be able to take all the content they've got on Syrinscape. They'll be able to import the music that they ripped off the computer game that's their favorite. They'll be able to take the thunder from the Storm set and as you said, maybe some Dragon Roars because they like those. Turn off the midgets or whatever, I don't know, and then save that and actually design their own sound sets. And hopefully, ultimately, there's so many creative people out there who have, a real passion for sound design, and I hear a lot of it. And we'll be able to involve those people in the community, and people will actually. The intention is that people will be able to build content that we can share as a community, and that just means more stuff for us. So that we can have a Wizard's Tower on a Tuesday, and we can have a Wizard's Tower on a Wednesday, or 2 different takes on a Wizard's Tower. People can have a quick listen to them and see which one they like, and use the content they want, which is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm playing in a couple of different adventure paths from Paizo right now, and looking over your sound list, it already seems like a couple of them are geared specifically towards some of the adventure paths. Skull and Shackles is obvious with the pirate-themed ones you were talking about, and Carrion Crown is very easy to add mood to with the Abandoned Asylum, the Mad Scientist Laboratory. So when you're creating these sound packs, how much do the adventure paths that are out there right now play into what's getting designed next?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I'm a Pathfinder tragic. Okay, everyone knows that word now. It means I'm very enthusiastic. And we were playing Harrowstone, so that's why the Harrowstone sort of esque stuff got built. What's actually happening, though, which is really exciting, is we've signed the license agreement with Paizo to actually produce Syrinscape content that directly supports some of the Pathfinder products. Now that means we'll still be building content that's relevant to all games. Obviously the fantasy genre contains dragons and ogres and a roper or whatever. But we're actually going to build content which takes that prep level if you're running particular Pathfinder products right down. So you're literally just going to be pressing on the encounter that's relevant for that bit of AP. You can actually just be clicking the sounds, which we're really, really excited. And as we do that, we'll break out some of that content as well, so that we still have the generic content as well. So it's easy to find. So if you want to have fighting on a cliff with ogres, you can have that as well, which is really cool.
So let's say I'm about to run Rise of the Rune Lords. Would I get the Rise of the Rune Lords package, or would I buy each individual adventure?
That's what you'd be buying. That's right. If it was Rise of the Rune Lords, which is going to be released soon, then you'd be purchasing an AP chapter, and you get a big pack of sound sets, which will follow that entire chapter all the way through all the events in that. And it'll be really, really clear, which is really exciting. Also, that left-hand column, where the very next update of Syrinscape will include the ability to manage what's in that left-hand column. It's just now starting to get really long as there's more and more content. And just the other day playing, I was finding myself scrolling through trying to find a particular sound set. So you'll actually be able to prepare just the 5 sound sets that you want actually showing, so they'll all be ready in a list.
Right, because right now it's not even in alphabetical order. I imagine it's in order of release.
It's in, yes, yeah, order of release and a mixture of that and themed, so it's kind of getting a bit chaotic. So I have been toying with putting it in alphabetical order very soon, so that might be something I do. But yeah, the next update of Syrinscape will take care of that. You'll be able to have a list and you'll be able to see all the ones you own or are available and pop out the ones you need for a particular campaign and save it ready for the night.
Now you mentioned that a lot of your ideas for the different sound packages comes from your fans, your customers. Do you have a very active forum? Like, how would people that are fans of Syrinscape interact with each other?
Yeah, we've been interacting as a community on Facebook and Twitter mainly. There's a lot of activity on the Syrinscape Facebook page, lots of toing and froing. Yeah, I jump on there and I ask people their opinions. People get to see what's coming up and some of the creative processes of the art. And then, yeah, there's also activity on Twitter. So people also email me directly at benjamin@syrinscape.com and just basically whinge for what they want, and which is fantastic. And you know, the product looks like it does because of what people demanded. There was quite a big debate when we totally redid the product. Exactly what should be on the screen, what you actually need control of, because you want to have as little as possible on the screen, obviously, but then you want to have the control that you need. And I think we've pretty much got it right. And then when people want more control, then they'll be able to run the editor once we've got that out, and you'll have complete control, which will be really exciting for people, I'm sure.
Got two quick questions for you now that you've talked about the APs. First, what does a goblin sound like?
Well, we have the goblin sounds all done, so that's revealed that there'll be goblins in the Paizo content we're releasing, which is really exciting. But I can't tell you any more than that. But the goblins sound fantastic. As you know about the Paizo company, they're incredibly involved in their third-party products, and they give a lot of love, and they really care. The sort of level of feedback we've got once we started down the process of developing the actual sounds for their products was really high and really detailed, which has been fantastic. So the goblins sound exactly like the Paizo team want them to sound, and they're pretty damn hilarious, actually.
And my second question is, how do you guys go about creating all these weird sounds, especially considering it's like a roper or a bugbear and all these fantasy things that we've only heard about and read about in books and have incredibly long names with 30 apostrophes?
That's fantastic. Yeah, so we were making a sound the other day. What can I say? I'm not meant to say what we're releasing with Paizo yet. It was a big beast. It started out literally as me going, oh! And then all sorts of incredible VST processes, pitch shifters, formant shifting, distortions, overlaying, all that sort of stuff happened in the audio software that I have to create that roar. And that went back and forwards with Paizo a few times to get it right. Things tend to sound very silly for a while, and then they sort of cross over the line and actually start to sound quite terrifying. I did an arrow. The arrow strikes for the high Cs were very fun. They're funny. They're literally made of me banging on my cupboard, and then a ruler over the edge of the desk, and me going. So, and so Foley, you know, I go online and I look at. There's some fantastic YouTube videos of people how to do Foley, which is the sound of, you know, rubbing cloth or arrows hitting or whatever. Then I use all sorts of voice actors. You know, people, the Dice Stormers have got in there, my own gaming group, and they've done a lot of the sounds for the Tavern Brawl, which is hilarious. And then the other really great source is there's a few fantastic community commons, Creative Commons sound effects sharing websites where there's community where we all share sounds that we create. So if someone gets a really fantastic clean sample of you know, a forest with some birds in it, which is really hard to come by in this world where there's always a car or a jackhammer or a kid screaming, you can use that, and I give attribution within the sound sets to those people who have created these awesome sounds. The theory being that some movie producer hears that sound and thinks, "Oh my God, that's amazing," and goes and checks who they are, follows them up, and they get in a big movie. In fact, some of the movies use Creative Commons attribution sounds as well. You'll see them listed in the credits at the end, which is really amazing.
Well, it seems like we don't have any specific questions about Syrinscape, so I'm just going to close up with a comment for you, Benjamin. One thing that's not really advertised as one of the one of the features of Syrinscape is that this is actually great writing mood music. It's just great to write to when you're designing either your own adventure or if you're writing material for publication.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no lyrics, so it's less distracting, and you can find exactly the mood you're writing to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of people have told me they're using it for that. The sci-fi player is about to come out, and there's a fantastic set in that called Nebula, which is kind of this really smooth, really slowly transforming sound, and you can turn on and off some debris which is bumping into the side of the ship. And everyone who's heard it just straight away says yoga. So people are going to be using it for all sorts of things. I think we'll probably release some dedicated players or something like that. There's going to be a subscription plan with Syrinscape where basically you just pay a small fee every couple of months and you just get access to everything. I think that's what people that's what people have been asking for. So then you won't sort of have to you won't have to go through and decide what to purchase or not. You just get access to everything there is in the whole program, and then you can pull out the sounds you need and use them as you want.
Excellent. Well, Benjamin, we're going to give you a chance to plug it at the end as well, but why don't you tell people where they can find out more about Syrinscape?
Yeah, search for Syrinscape. It's spelled Syrinscape. Just Google for it or go to Syrinscape.com or search on Facebook. You can't miss it. Siren as in the syrinx, those bird creatures who sit on the side and sing out to people and pull sailors to their deaths. That lovely mood. So yeah, search for it and check it out. Stay in touch. Make sure you get in contact and ask questions. There's a great community around it. Tweet, whatever. Excellent. And you can try it for free. By the way, to check it works on your system. It's available on PC and Mac and Android tabs and iPads. So yeah, and you can use all the content you own on all those devices. And once you've just tried those 2 sound sets you saw that Param had for free, then you get some other stuff if you like. Enjoy.
Now, Colen, before we move on to you exclusively, we have a question from Bastille in chat. And it's for everybody. He's wondering about the programming languages that Hero Lab, Syrinscape, and Roll20 are written in. So, Benjamin, why don't we start with you? How is Syrinscape, like, on the nuts and bolts side of it, how is Syrinscape made?
So when I first made it, just for my own gaming group, not with any view for it being a big product, I literally looked around for a programming language that could do it, and I used Python, which is a fantastically simple and straightforward language, a really cool language. Then when we got some funding and decided to completely redevelop it and make it online and linkable and all that sort of stuff, we used the Unity system, which is a Unity 3D, which is a fantastic high-powered multi-platform development thing, which has really, really powerful audio, and that's what's allowed us to do the whole surround sound, and our sounds even move, so that if there's a ghost sound, it can drift past your head and stuff like that. And ironically enough, now that we're going back and building native UIs through to the devices so that the experience is really smooth on every device and you can log in exactly how you're not used to on an iPad, for instance, we're actually going back to Python to write those native UIs. So it's a beautiful circle.
Colen, how about you? How does Lone Wolf develop the Hero Lab program?
Hero Lab is almost all C++. The cool thing for programmers, this sort of thing counts as cool, is that we have exactly the same code that manages your character. That same code runs on the Mac, on the PC, and then also on the iPad. And all we do is put slightly different user interfaces over the top of that. So that lets us... It's a lot of work just maintaining this for one thing. If we had to have different applications in different languages on each platform, then that would be unsustainable. So we have Benjamin knows everything is in C++, and that lets us share code across multiple platforms very nicely.
Excellent. And Nolan, what about Roll20?
JavaScript mostly, some Ruby, and it's geared toward essentially we're utilizing HTML5 browsers. So Chrome, Firefox, and if you've got Internet Explorer with the Chrome extension, that's what we're geared towards, is being able to run in a browser. So yeah, JavaScript is the main language. Not the same as Java for those of you who are.
What language on the server, Nolan?
What language is it? We use Node.js. It's a Firebase is the run, but I think the server is it Fabric.js, 3.js. The honest truth is the backside stuff. I mean, the programmer is Riley, and that's all on the acknowledgments. If I go and map this for the nice person who asked the question, they can go and see absolutely everything from the fact that the design is Twitter Bootstrap and stuff like that. And I'll swing by the YouTube page and give that. So he's got the full list there.
Yeah, I'm surprised at the cross-section between professionals, computer workers, and role players.
I think there's a lot of people who've been playing, role-playing games on the computer, right? Like, I mean, even like Diablo 2, that's a big, I mean, that's a certain side of role-playing, but that gives you certainly a role-playing fix right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you want to elaborate a little bit on your observations on the cross-section?
Well, it's like anymore I'm surprised when somebody that is very interested in role-playing or I'm talking with online doesn't work in computers in some form or fashion. Like the unofficial Paizo chat room, I pop in there all the time both to answer and to ask things about programming questions that I'm working on for my own apps and stuff.
Yeah, because you wrote the spell cards, and much the sort of same level of skill and passion. I mean, they're a fantastic tool, and I use them for a long time. And yeah, I think people who role play are sort of people who, if they've got a problem, they work out a way of solving it. And with a bit of patience and a lot of concentration, I think you can master a language. You pick the language that works for you, and you go for it.
Plus, you get to be a real life spellcaster.
Yeah.
Magic.
Hey, I take nothing, and then cool things happen on a computer. It's awesome. Well, you all know that. All right, so let's move on to talk to another piece of software that I really could not play Pathfinder without, and that is Hero Lab and Lone Wolf Development. So, Alan, you've got the stage. Tell us a little bit about Hero Lab and how it came to be.
So the role-playing games, as we've all established, are really cool. And there are kind of a bunch of different parts to playing role-playing games. One part is actually the playing, and then one part is the creating characters. And depending on the game, that character creation can be more or less complicated. And with a game like Pathfinder, which now has how many hardcover books and softcover? I think we have it's over 50 or over 100 books in Hero Lab right now just from Pathfinder. There's a lot of stuff out there. So there's a lot of books to build your character from. Secondly, there's just a lot of rules to keep in mind and a lot of things to think about when you're building your character. Even if you're going with a really simple rule set, we actually had a review that for Hero Lab for the Pathfinder beginner box that I saw, where the reviewer said, "Hey, I'm doing this character. It's a much simpler game system than the regular Pathfinder, but I wanted to try out Hero Lab for the Pathfinder beginner box, so I tried it out, and we went through building the character. And even with this simplified game system, we found out that we had made a mistake." Because we had taken too few memorized spells for the wizard. So for all these game systems, not just Pathfinder, there's all this complexity in choosing what to use in your game and then how to build your character. What we wanted to do with Hero Lab was to make it possible for both players to create player characters and then GMs to create NPCs and run combats. Basically, take all the drudgery out of building characters and actually, playing the game, so that people can concentrate on what we think are the fun parts, which is figuring out cool stuff to do with your character and not spending 15 minutes checking over everything to make sure that you haven't forgotten something, or spending half an hour paging through books to figure out what what class you want to be or which feats you want to use.
Now, we have a local player and a listener to the podcast that, and I quote, called Hero Lab literally a godsend.
That's true. I can exclusively reveal here that Hero Lab is actually written by gods.
We've been making fun of him for months, and he had it right this whole time.
That's true. So we started off with just the basic app. Originally, it was for the D20 system. Pathfinder is a big game now. We're actually supporting. In the next few days, we'll be releasing our next Pathfinder update, which is going to include content from Inner Sea Gods. But as you're showing on the screen here, you can kind of customize your character, you can add weapons, pick your background, choose languages. Hero Lab validates everything and shows you the list of all of the options that you can take. As not just while you're creating stuff, but as you can see that you're looking at the list of weapons right now, for example, but you can still see the rest of the character on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can still see your stats, your skills. You can mouse over stuff. So if you mouse over a skill name, for example, it'll give you a description of that skill. So we're not just helping you build a character, we're also helping you not have to page through books every time you want to make a decision. Every time you tweak something, Hero Lab automatically recalculates all of the different things. But we're not just for building characters. You can also use Hero Lab at the gaming table as an electronic character sheet. You can use it to track hit points, conditions, bonuses on a Windows or Mac laptop. We also have an iPad app for Pathfinder only at this point that lets you just use Hero Lab on an iPad at the game table to keep track of your Pathfinder character. Recently, we added, for a long time we've supported for GMs being able to run combats. Recently, we've added the new encounter builder that lets you build encounters, add different monsters, keep track of the total challenge rating. So before all this, when I would make an encounter for my Pathfinder game, I would go to d20pfsrd.com, which is a great website. It's a great resource to have. Look through the list there, write down on a bit of paper what monsters looked cool, and then manually add up how many experience points they had, what the challenge rating was. Now with the encounter builder, as you can see there, you can search through a list of thousands of monsters. We've got to pick portraits for a bunch of some of them. We're in the next Pathfinder update, we're going to be adding Bestiary 3, Bestiary 4 portraits also. It's not just Paizo content either. We've also got content from Frog God Games and Cobalt Press. So if you're playing in those game worlds, you can use the Tome of Horrors, you can use the Midgard Bestiary, you can see all of those monsters there. So Hero Lab, really, we're focusing on an application to take all the mechanics of running a game, of playing or running a game, and let people concentrate on the story. And that's also where our new application, Realmworks, comes in. Would you like me to tell you about Realmworks?
Oh yes, definitely.
So Realmworks, Hero Lab is, like I said, is very mechanical. It does all the numbers. It's very game systems focused. So you're building a character for Pathfinder or D20 or Savage Worlds. We support a bunch of other games as well: Shadowrun, Mutants and Masterminds, Call of Cthulhu. Whichever game, it's all very specific to that game because each game has very specific rules. Realmworks is game system neutral. It's a new program, just came out a month or so. We had a very successful Kickstarter last year. It's built by a team of GMs, and we're trying to build it to solve problems that we've run into when running our games over the last years. We have a 10-year campaign going, set in our own custom homebrew sci-fi setting that is kind of challenging to keep track of. Just because it's been running for so long, we play for a while. We were playing every month or so, but there's a lot of history there. And so our idea behind one of the ideas behind Realmworks was make it easy for the GM and the player to keep track of all that stuff. You can also you can keep track of text, maps, relationships, links. We've combined a whole bunch of different things when we're building Realmworks. So we've got the full text formatting from a word processor to enter your content. We've got wikis. We've got linking like wikis, but Realmworks does all the links automatically. You don't have to create the links yourself. Realmworks will just fill in the blanks for you. Full text search to make it easy to find what you're looking for. You can take freeform notes during the game, see a timeline of events that have taken place. You can put pins on your maps. This is a great screenshot here, which keep track of where things are. We also have a concept of what we call fog of world, which is you're probably everyone, just like everyone's playing role-playing games. A lot of people have probably played real-time strategy games like StarCraft, Warcraft. They always have the dark spots on the map hiding bits that you haven't seen yet. So we took that and applied it to everything. So you can hide bits of maps and then reveal them to players, but you can also do that for individual bits of content. So all of the text that you see here, each of those snippets, you can reveal individually to the players. So as they find out stuff, you can reveal more of the content to them. You can then go back and see and track which pieces of content were revealed when. Makes it really easy to recap what happened to your last game.
So how do the players view this information if the GM is creating it?
So right now, there's we have the player view, where if you have Realmworks running on a laptop, for example, you can plug in. You can either put that on the screen and turn it round if you have an image or a map you want them to see, or you can plug in a second monitor and have that showing whatever you want to show during the game, which can be a map or an image or maybe a clue to some puzzle that the players are trying to find. We're also working right now on Realmworks Player Edition, which is going to be a low-cost version of Realmworks that is for players, where players will basically be able to see, here's all the stuff that the GM has revealed from my game, whether that's bits of maps or parts or information about different topics or even relationships between people and places. All that stuff is going to be viewable by the players in Realmworks Player Edition, which we're going to be coming out with soon.
I'm going to remind anyone that's watching us live, you can post your questions in the comments section, specifically right now for Colen of Lone Wolf, but we'll also be talking to Nolan Jones of Roll20, and if you have just any broad questions for all three of our specialists. Colen, I imagine any time that you as a GM have to do something with paper and pencil, you feel like you've failed in some way.
Yeah, like keeping track of initiative, for example.
Okay, so then, so what happens then? You're running your game and you realize that Hero Lab doesn't have this feature. What's the next step?
So one of the big strengths about Hero Lab is that we don't slavishly lock you into what the game requires. Hero Lab has the concept of adjustments. So let's say that the party is in some sort of final battle and it looks bleak, and one of the players, the paladin, makes this impassioned plea to his deity. No game mechanics were behind that. And the GM says, "Great, that worked really well." And so, a shaft of sunlight falls from the sky and falls directly on you. You get a +2 morale bonus to armor class and attack rolls. With Hero Lab, there's no magical shaft of light from the deity, specific rule in Pathfinder. So with Hero Lab, what you can do is just go in and add an adjustment and say, okay, the GM says I can get +2 armor class, +2 attack bonus. And so there's a lot of that sort of thing where we allow you to make those changes. Even though they're not in the rules, we're very flexible and allow you to make changes and adjust things as needed for the game. So many people also have house rules that, like, let's say, hey, everybody gets like a poker chip at the start of the game, and you can turn that in to go first for one turn. Hero Lab rolls initiative for everybody. I turn in my poker chip. The GM just hits the go first button on our tactical console, and that person then moves to the start of initiative order. So with Hero Lab, we try to tread the fine line between telling you what's allowed, but not forcing you to only go with that. You can break the rules, you can add too many feats, you can spend money you don't have, you can do all that stuff, and we'll tell you, hey, this isn't strictly in the rules, but if your GM wants you to allow you to do this, that's great, go hog wild.
Yeah, I do like that you can toggle whether you're counting your gold towards encumbrance or not.
There are a few. There's counting gold towards encumbrance, and there's just encumbrance as a whole. Because some groups enjoy playing that way. Some people just kind of assume, ugh, it's all on the horse or something, and then maybe for the one encounter when orcs separate you from your mounts because you left them behind somewhere, that's when it gets interesting. Then you need to figure out what do we actually have. But we have support for common house rules like that, and we try to make Hero Lab as flexible as possible so that even if there's something we didn't think of, or if there's something that just your group does, you can still accomplish that within Hero Lab. And then Realmworks is totally game system neutral, so whatever you want to do goes within Realmworks. There's no problems there.
Now, one of the things I really like about Hero Lab specifically is that you just mentioned it. You've got the Inner Sea Gods thing coming out shortly. You guys like it. Having used program these sorts of character builders over the years, one of the things that's nightmarish is when you get the new source book and either you enter it in as you get it, and thankfully you guys do provide tools for entering in your own custom content that work very well, but that's very time consuming and work intensive, and sometimes figuring out exactly how you code up this weird new paladin alternate class ability gets tricky. But you guys are right on the ball to get all the books out like very shortly after they're released, if not the day they release in some cases.
Right. Just like I believe Syrinscape, we have a license with Paizo, so we get the books in advance. We've had several people working for the last few months on entering Inner Sea Gods. Like you said, it's very time consuming, and so we've had multiple data file authors working on that for several months now. Our what we try to strive for is to have books, to have Hero Lab content released on the same day as the books. We haven't quite made that with Inner Sea Gods this month. I think we're either going to end releasing tomorrow or Friday. But our goal for Hero Lab is we provide, like you said, an editor to let you enter your own custom content or whatever content you want from Pathfinder. Or if you prefer, you can add data packages to your license to have to basically let us do all that work for you. And there's, like I said earlier, there's so many. Pathfinder has so many books now. There's the Advanced Player's Guide, Ultimate Magic, Ultimate Combat. If we didn't support all of those, it would be really hard to get started because you'd be so limited. But we have packages available for all of those. So if you're making a character that needs, the Alchemist class, or we have all the playtest classes from the Advanced Class Guide, for example, are currently included for free. That'll be the case until it gets released in August this year. All of those are available to meddle around with, to customize, to build characters with.
Now we do have, we'll call it a question from chat. N. Eric Phillips says, iPad, why does everyone ignore the Android platform?
So that's actually a great question. And we literally just an hour or so ago we sent out a newsletter update which had which addressed this a little bit. The reason that the main reason that we tackled the iPad first, there are a couple of reasons. Firstly, we could reuse a lot of the code from our Mac version. Not all of it. The user interface is completely different, as you'll have seen if you've seen the two things. But a lot of the baseline code for just getting things working on the iPad at all was very similar to what we did for the Mac. Another factor, and I think this gets overstated sometimes, but it is still a factor, is that with the iPad, there is a single resolution to support, and all you have to deal with is just the iPad from 2010, the iPad from 2011, the iPad from 2012. With Android, there's a bunch of different form factors. You have tablets from 6 up to like 12 inches with different resolutions, with different powers, and it's not insurmountable, but it's significantly more work. And as I'm pretty sure we all are, the gaming industry isn't really a place for huge software development companies. We're all very small companies, and we only have so much time to put towards stuff.
Yeah, can I say we spent probably a couple of days just trying to deal with a scrolling issue where, because of all the different interface sizes and resolution sizes on the Android, you'd scroll in one of the columns and it would go super fast, or you get another Android where you sort of scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and it would take ages. And just solving that one problem uses up a whole massive chunk of development time. So yeah, supporting another whole platform can be really complicated, and so the iPad makes sense. But I would like an Android too.
Yeah. So we would love to provide an Android version. What we're focusing on right now is it's going to be significantly easier for. Right now we have the iPad app that lets you create characters, and I'm sorry, it lets you use characters in play. Yeah, thank you. What we're working on right now is expanding that to be able to create characters for Pathfinder on the iPad as well. After that, it's going to be another small step to add additional games. We haven't that are supported on the desktop but not on the iPad. Unfortunately, it's just the case that adding Android support is going to be a huge, but to say something I should have said on a G-rated podcast, a huge amount of work to do that. That's will probably take the entire Hero Lab team literally months of work. And the reason that we've been kind of, so far we've been focusing on making small steps. So Hero Lab on Windows, Hero Lab on Mac we could reuse so much of the code, and it was a medium step. From there to Hero Lab on the iPad, from there to creating characters, from there to other game systems. Those are a whole bunch of small steps. Developing on Android is going to be, it has its own set of challenges, and that's going to be a huge step for us to take. And so right now we're focusing on the small steps first, so we can get comfortable with those, get comfortable with having a tablet version that provides the creation experience, for example. I would love nothing more than to provide a Hero Lab experience that was the same on the iPad, on Android, even on Windows, even on the new Windows tablets. But we only have so many people working on stuff, and so we have to be very careful about where we spend our resources. Android fans, we would love to be able to put Hero Lab on the iPad. We do not hate you. We do not. It's not that we hate Android or something like that. It's that we have hard choices to make about where to put in our time, and right now, unfortunately, the right place we feel to put in that time is getting stuff more complete on the iPad.
I'm going to give our listeners one last chance to ask any questions specifically about Hero Lab. And Param, do you have any last questions for Colen?
I did. When you were putting together the Realmworks, now Realmworks is one I'm really glad to finally get my hands on, because you guys have been teasing me with this from Gen Con to Gen Con to Gen Con. Like, one of my first stops has always been, let me see where Realmworks is now. Now that you've got this out and you've got it, where do you see the future of Realmworks going?
So the near future is going to be Realmworks Player Edition, which will let players get better access to the content that the GMs have been creating. We're also planning to do a web-based version. So right now Realmworks only works on Windows. The web-based version, you'll be able to take your iPad, for example, and view all that stuff not edit it, but you'll be able to view all that stuff on your iPad or on your Android tablet or on something else as well. Where we're planning to go after that is going to be what we're calling the content market, where where GMs can create and share content that they've created themselves, and you'll also be able to buy content from different publishers. We've already got a bunch of publishers on board. We're going to be entering for sale stuff from Razor Coast from Frog God Games, Hall of the Mountain King from Cold Press, the Grand Temple of Jing from Hammer Dog Games. So we've got a bunch of people on board. What we would eventually love to have happen is, hey, you want to run a Pathfinder adventure, then just go ahead, download, purchase that content from within Realmworks. All that stuff appears within Realmworks, ready for you to use, all split out and ready to go. Because as I'm sure everybody's experienced, as our lives change and we get older, we have more and more commitments on our time. And so what we're trying to do, just for everything pretty much, is take the drudgery and the hard work and a lot of the preparation time out of playing games, and let you use that time for fun things, like min-maxing your character or tweaking your story, rather than having to collate different documents together and see how they fit into your world. That's what we're trying to address with Hero Lab and with Realmworks as well.
All right. Well, unless there are any last comments from chat, I think we are ready to move on to you reminding people where they can find out more information about Lone Wolf.
Excellent. So you can find Hero Lab at www.gethero.lab.com. We have a free demo version that you can download and try for any of our games and before you buy the product. Realmworks you can find at www.getrealmworks.com. We have a bunch of screenshots, no free demo version unfortunately, but you can find out a lot more about the product and see how it looks.
Excellent. Thank you, Colin. And now Nolan. Thank you. First of all, thank you for your patience.
Yep.
And why don't you tell us Roll20.net? What is it? Why is it important to gaming?
Okay, we're a browser-based, system-agnostic virtual tabletop. We have premium paid features, but our free service is really, really robust. We're currently over 475,000 users are in the system, and they've amassed over 1,500 years of gameplay since the closed beta nearly 2 years ago to the day started. I think it was May 2nd that we opened the beta servers. So that's a lot of game time in that amount of time. As far as Pathfinder goes, I think it's funny that I'm probably both the first off, the least qualified person here to talk about Pathfinder, as I've never actually played using the rule set. But in another respect, if you Google play Pathfinder online, Roll20 is the first search result, and 38% of our users self-identify as playing Pathfinder. So we're definitely doing something right there in regards to being a digital toolbox for the system. What do we got up on the screen share there? What are we playing with?
Karim, why don't you describe the map that you put together here?
Oh, this was where I was getting ready for a Pathfinder Society game that I was going to run online. And so I've got like this was what I had up while they filed in, just so they knew what they were playing. And then when they got to the conversation with the venture captain, I got the space up here and talking about the city and all the districts that they were going to be going in, and then I got a battle mat of one of the first encounters.
And it's fun too that you can do that in a lot of different ways. I like what you did there with the initial screen being the cover. Because it's great to have your players load into something where they can't quite start tinkering around. That can be an important thing. A lot of GMs worry about, oh, well, what if they peek? They can't peek if you put them on a screen like that. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of people with what you're doing there on that second screen that instead will use the journal feature or something like that, so people have a handout that they can be constantly referring to. What's the overhead look like? Or, what's the note I've been passed? Or what was that guy? What did he look like? What was his background? There's a lot of different ways to do it. It depends very much on your personal style and how you want to play. So,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just, as he was scrolling through there, there's a whole lot of options in terms of tokens and stuff like that. Some of them are free assets. Most of those have been provided by Devin Knight, who's been doing virtual tabletop artwork for a long time. But there's also a robust marketplace, and that's one of my responsibilities, is managing the marketplace. And we've got a lot of premium content, really, really nice stuff that's available for purchase. But you can also drag and drop anything that you've got on your computer in, which is one of the things that makes us really quick and easy to use, is that if you've got your own map or your own token, things that you specifically want, you can toss them in there and go.
I think that's one of the things that makes it so popular with Pathfinder Society players specifically, because Pathfinder Society, there's an expectation to follow it exactly as the scenario is run. So the fact that you can just drag in the map rather than having to painstakingly recreate the map detail for detail, that makes the GM's prep work so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, setting this, I didn't finish getting this set up because my game got canceled. But just getting this far took like maybe 10 minutes. It was super easy to get put together.
And that's one of the things. You can take as much or as little time as you want. Like I'm noticing that the grid's not aligned up to the map you've got, and there's a full tool that you can go in and set it up so your grid is exactly aligned to what the map's grid is, if you've got a gridded map. And that's one of those things. You don't have to. There's a lot of different ways to play in the system.
That's Paizo's fault. They admit that they cheat with their grids.
Yeah, their grid doesn't line up even when you line it up. I've
Ooh.
run into that a few times.
Well, but that's one of those things that you can always turn off our grid and
Yeah,
move
that's
with
what
that.
I've done. It's not on screen right now, but when we actually play, that's what I do. I turn the grid off and just use the map grid. Though I did like that you had the grid matching feature, and then was very frustrated that this square is not the same size as this square. Which isn't your fault, it's the map's fault. No, but this was really easy to use. Brian, you've got a lot more experience using Roll20, so I'm just providing screenshots.
Sure, yeah, I've both played it and GM'd it, and every time I've been one of the least experienced people at the table, and yet I have no problem getting through the entire adventure without fumbling. I know exactly what I want to do, but also just about every encounter, somebody does something that it's like, that's a cool feature, I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I feel like even as the developer of the program, there's so many times where I'll watch a video of somebody playing and be like, "Oh, that's an interesting way to do it." We're so lucky in that we, from the outset, went how non-restrictive can we be? How much can we, allow this to be how you want it, your table to be, your living room table, and your gameplay to be. That's really freed it up to allow a whole lot of different options. So, yeah, really, it's fun to see what other people come up with for solutions in their gaming.
Now, Roll20 wasn't the first virtual tabletop, so what is it about Roll20 that separates it from your competitors?
Easy use is honestly the main reason. That's the reason that we exist, is that Roll20 wasn't made as a product. It was made as a personal project for 3 guys to play games with. And everything else is rolled out of that, but we looked at the other options out there, and they were nearly unusable for what we wanted to do. And so the result is that we came together, and Riley very early on said something to the extent of, what is a tabletop other than one image on top of another? And so he started it as a basic image sharing software. That both people could see an image move, and we kind of went from there.
I like that. Now, Param, you were using some of the tools earlier. Why don't you start showing the ruler tool? And Nolan, what can you tell us about the different ways that people can use the features to not only play the game, but also plan out how they're going to be playing their next game?
Well, I think the journal feature is a thing that I would really take advantage of in any game, is that it allows you to set up in advance notes that you're going to pass out and things like that. And it's also a good way that if you're somebody who you have a lot of notes for yourself, you can keep track of. The system is very heavily tagging based. If you're a folder mindset person, that's not the way Riley approaches design, and I would highly recommend tagging things as you go, because you'll find it's a lot easier to keep track in the long run. Other features, we do have a jukebox for music and sound effects. And then beyond that, just figuring out what you want to do audio-wise. The newest feature that we've got coming out May 28th is that we're going to finally have full character sheet support. Actually, if I could, I'll screen share for half a second.
Okay.
What do I want to do? Let's do full screen. And then I'll forget how to turn this off is what's going to happen. But if you can see here, this is the Pathfinder community sheet. Somebody actually programmed this outside of us. These are all contributed by Mentor subscribers, that this is a sheet that they want to be using for their gameplay. So far, we've got about 20 different sheets for games. Regular free users will not be able to program their own sheets, but they will be able to create, or they will be able to use the community-created sheets. Am I back? Did I do
back.
You are back.
Aha!
So when you said it'll be like form filling?
They'll be able to select sheets, and yeah, you can fill in the forms here. It's programmed in HTML and CSS, so it's fairly easy to use if you're somebody who's creating a sheet. But on the flip side, if you're somebody who's just using a sheet, it'll be a drop-down list. You go and select the game type that you're interested in playing, and you're good to go. That it's simply you fill in the field with the numbers, words, whatever it is that you're doing for your specific game.
Now, we've been talking a lot about platforms today. What are the different platforms that Roll20 is available on?
We're available. I mean, if it can do Chrome, if it can do Firefox, we're available. So we iPad, Android, and obviously computer. I mean, since we're browser-based, and that's really been an advantage for us in a lot of ways, is because people who are looking to get into this hobby, either that haven't been in for a long time, so it's been 20 years since I played, or people who are brand new to this hobby and want to try it for the first time, they don't want to download anything. You know, it's such a ask to get somebody to pay and to download and to do all those different things up front. We're a link. You send somebody a link and they're in the game and playing. And that's really, really important to us, because that was part of the reason that our group fell apart when we initially tried to do these things long distance, was that when you get into not only paying or downloading, but port forwarding, it's too much of an ask to get somebody who's a first-timer. If you think about it in a real-world sense, when you're playing these games in person, only one person goes and buys all the books and the maps and the tokens, and everybody else pitches in for pizza. And that was a realization for us early on, was that we probably can't get everybody to commit at that level. So why don't we just bring the bar down as low as we can possibly set it? And I really think that that's why we'll probably hit 500,000 users at the beginning of June. So that's entirely a result of how easy it is to just get in there and start going.
Now, you mentioned that there's a premium version. What advantages do users have for comparing the free version to the premium version?
So there's two premium versions. One's a supporter level. I would say the basis of that is dynamic lighting, which is a really great feature for if you've got any encounter where there's visibility that you want to play with. And there's several different ways you can do it. There's a basic fog of war feature that everybody can use, but dynamic lighting allows you to, say, a player has a torch and really put them in a scenario where they're walking down a hallway and they can't see everything, or they come around a corner and there's the gnome or whatever it is that's going to jump out, it's really fun, and it really adds an extra layer of, it's one of the few things that we can do in Roll20 that you can't necessarily do at a physical table. So it's a great advantage to take. Beyond that, there's extra storage space and some other features along those lines. That makes up the basic supporter level. Beyond that, the mentor level is really a power user that wants to automate things, that wants to get in there and do some programming. So we've got an API, an application programming interface, that allows you, if you want to go and say, my character makes this many hit points, automatically put a bloodied mark on them or something like that. But also they get access to the development server. So for example, these new character sheets, they're not live to everybody, but they are live to mentors right now for testing. And so there's people who have, they get in there and take advantage of the newest features and try them out, and also get a chance to directly give us feedback. We're really, really talkative with our users as far as what do we need to be doing here, what are the things that aren't working, and that immediate feedback with mentors really shapes the program. So it's nice to be in that position where you've got our ear a little bit closer. Does that make?
Go ahead.
Does that make sense as far as what the two? I mean, and there's a lot of other features that go into those two levels, but those are what I'd say are the main draws that we find people saying this is the reason that I'm subscribed at this level.
Hey, I'm seeing a piano there in your shot, which I have one too down here. What's your musical background?
8 years of piano training, I guess. A little bit of classical, a little bit of jazz, and I've been fiddling around with a little bit of there's some video game projects that I've been playing with, doing soundtracks for. We'll see where they go, if anywhere. Roll20 is eating up a whole lot of time right now, so it's difficult to fit in anything else edgewise. But yeah, there's a piano here. I wish I had more time to use it.
I'm just going to remind people that you've got about 5 more minutes to ask any questions about Roll20, such as listener Matt Harris has asked a question that I'm going to piggyback a second question onto. He says, how many monthly games get played on average on Roll20, and how can people find games?
Okay, monthly. Let's see what the monthly facts are right now.
Real-time statistics, folks.
Yeah, it'll take a second to pull it up. The problem is, so when I'm doing this right now, there's 3,000 people actively playing, and so I've got to run in there and get out of my way. Campaigns currently. So it looks like the 7-day average that's new created. 18,000 games are being played a week. Campaigns.
Oh goodness.
So that's times 4 is how many games you're looking at in a month. The
2,000.
Yeah, so it's a lot of games. And that's honestly, though, one of the advantages of what we have as far as a system is that if we were doing this like an MMO or something like that, you're looking at people being on constantly, as opposed to with our system, we're going to play for 4 hours, but not everybody is going to play the same 4 hours. Your group is going to get together at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. My group's going to get together at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, and so it spreads out the server load a little bit and makes it all easier. And then what was the other question? How to find games?
Yep.
I think the best method is probably our Looking for Group engine. We're going to go in hopefully later this year and optimize that a little bit further. But it gives you the opportunity to advertise games or search through games being advertised. We've got a really overflowing Looking for Group forum. We use Reddit as a place for looking for group setups, and Google Plus is also a place where there's a lot of people advertising games, and there's a Roll20 player network. There's a lot of different options for advertising your games. And but the Looking for Group system is something that we're really trying to find ways to better that and make it so. I mean, the number one reason we find that people stall out in using Roll20 is that their group falls apart. It's through no fault of the programming. It's not that they don't like what we're doing, but it's that their group falls apart. So we've got a very active interest in trying to find a way to make better, stronger groups, or make it easier to find a group. So that is something that we're constantly looking at and playing with, which is funny because, again, since this was a personal project initially, that wasn't our thought at all. It took a long time for us to put in a Looking for Group feature because, you should have your own friends. Like, we're not in it for that. And then eventually came to the realization that, there's now so many people playing this that we need to make it a focus, and have begun looking at ways to better that down the line.
Do you know what your GM to player ratio is?
Oh, yes. The most recent survey that we did stated people that identified as a game master were 47% of users, a player 28%, and then equally for both 24%.
These are some small tables.
No, that's good. Being someone that coordinates Pathfinder Society in my local region, it seems like we're always 10 times more players than we have GMs. So the fact that almost half your players are GMs, that's impressive.
Well, I would also say, though, that since it's a survey, I would say that the people who are probably more likely to take a survey are GMs. Like that goes to logic that they're the ones who are out there running around. Because I definitely know that there are times on the forums where there's people, why aren't there any GMs for, and it's this small subsection game that we don't even put on the Looking for Group system. And that's one of those decisions that people don't understand is really tough because we're so system agnostic. We want every game to be there. It's really different that in our Looking for Group system, we don't allow you to advertise every game, but that was a design decision in that we didn't want people searching for a game, not finding any active listings in their favorite game, and then never going back to that area again. Like that, things like that are such a danger that we try to push against that to make certain that we're putting games out there that there's going to be at least a couple options for you if you're searching that game type. That way, you're going to come back. So we're always hopeful that more smaller games will start posting on our forums and stuff like that, but not necessarily in the Looking for Group feature.
Now, my only criticism of Roll20 at all is one that you brought up yourself.
You've only got one?
Yeah. And that it's very difficult for my players to pitch in to buy me pizza.
Yeah. It's funny. I gave a guest lecture at KU. I'm a University of Kansas grad here recently, and there was somebody in the one of the students that was like, "When are you guys going to put together a deal with Pizza Hut?" It's like, we're not there. Like,
EverQuest did it.
yeah, it'd be great, but
you just have a pizza icon and you buy your DM pizza and your chances of surviving goes up. But you can actually statistically, 20%. Yeah.
Yeah. No, if only we could get there, cajillionaires, but not quite. But I think right now, honestly, the real concern who we'd like to work with is publishers. And I think what we've seen is that publishers are really hesitant because they've bought in heavily to previous virtual tabletops and they didn't pan out. And so we're sitting in a place where these past failures have really hamstringed us because they're waiting for us to fail. And we're waiting for them to get on board with the fact that 500,000 users in about a month. Like, it really is important that we start seeing it's the #1 requested feature from our users that they want one-click adventures that they can load up and go play. So we would love to start doing that with various publishers. And I've had conversations with all the major players, but it's on them to give the green light and move forward.
That was actually Matt Harris's question in chat. Then to expand on that, I know that I've prepared scenarios for Pathfinder Society, so how as the GM could I share this with other GMs to ease their prep time?
You really can't. You can promote somebody else specifically to a GM. So if you want to do the prep work and then somebody in your group, you want them to run an adventure, which is, for something like Pathfinder, where you probably wouldn't want to do that as far as the surprises go. But there are systems out there that it would work like that, or especially board games, where that works very simply. But for reasons of copyright, we don't do that sort of overall share, and that's one of the reasons that it would be so nice to be able to have licensed content, because people want that time save of being able to go click and jump in and start playing.
Yeah, I get that a lot, even from my own running Parent Spellbook. One of the most common things I get is, why can't we make our own custom data files? And that's because I don't want to get sued, because if somebody shares out copyright material, it gets dangerous.
Well, and on the flip side of that, though, is that if you're using the Open Gaming License or something like that, and you put together a module with artwork that you have the rights for, we distribute it in a heartbeat. We're absolutely happy to take on up-and-coming publishers. We're excited about it. There's a couple people who currently have projects on Kickstarter that we're working with to bring their systems to Roll20, and we're really excited about it because we know how much our users are clamoring for something like that, and so we really think that we're going to be able to give some smaller publishers a really giant platform and really quick distribution that they wouldn't have otherwise. So, if as soon as the big dogs are ready, we are absolutely ready to go and do that for them as well, because I really do think that we can increase their visibility and get people hooked on playing their game. If you take out that part that's difficult, it really does make a huge difference.
Excellent. Well, Nolan, why don't you tell people where they can find out more about Roll20?
Roll20.net is the best place. I would suggest to anybody that's checking it out to swing by our wiki as well. That'll answer a whole lot of questions. If you're specifically playing something like Pathfinder, users have gone in and made suggestions for, here are the best macros. Here are the best settings for how you're going to want your maps to be. Here are the best ways to put in character attributes so you can roll quickly off of whatever you're doing. Spend some time on that wiki and check out, Google search for tutorial videos on whatever game you are, because outside of us there are now so many tutorial videos. A really great resource if you're just trying to figure out if this is something that interests you at all now is Twitch. Twitch TV streams. There's such a variety now that you can go sit down at any time of day and watch somebody playing in Roll20. That's something to keep an eye on as well.
Excellent. And can we expect to see you or somebody from the Roll20 team at any conventions this summer?
We're doing Gen Con for sure. We're looking at PAX Prime as well. Our Gen Con event just got approved last night, actually. So we'll have a 2-hour session there, and we're also looking at doing some other panels with a few other folks on some related topics to just the industry at large, and our observations from where we're sitting at. But yeah, we'll definitely be at Gen Con and maybe PAX Prime. It depends on timing and what happens there with panels.
Gen Con and PAX Prime, you guys are gluttons for punishment.
The PAX Prime is still a coin flip, but we'd like to do. We just did PAX East, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good show to sit down and have some conversations with folks that we don't get to see at something like Gen Con. But at the same time, we have such a different approach in that we don't feel it necessary at current to do a table, because sitting there and demoing the program isn't as effective as saying, we're going to do a 2-hour panel and really give you all the nuts and bolts to a crowd. So, yeah, I think part of the reason that we're gluttons for punishment in terms of conventions is I also write comics, so I've done so many comic book conventions at this point that it's old hat. Gen Con, that's not as big as San Diego Comic Con. I can navigate that crowd for a few days.
Indianapolis is not as big as San Diego Comic Con.
Yeah. Indianapolis is great, though. That's something, if you haven't done Gen Con, it's such a fantastic show, and Indianapolis really does roll out the red carpet in a way that even though it's bizarrely cross-scheduled with a motorcycling convention, it is an absolutely a blast, and I would recommend it to anybody who likes the hobby.
Gosh, I remember one year it was their football team was having their opening game the same weekend as Gen Con, and it caused it hotels, and I saw a Klingon and somebody in blue paint yelling at each other.
Yes! I love those little cross sections.
Colin, what can you remind people where they can find out more about Wolflayer, and tell us about any cons that people can come see you at?
We're going to be at PaizoCon this summer, start of July, and then also Gen Con, the meeting place for all gamers in August. And you can find Lone Wolf Development at wolflayer.com, or our products Hero Lab at Realmworks at www.getherolab.com and www.getrealmworks.com.
Excellent. And Benjamin, that brings us to you. Where can people find out more about Syrinscape, and where can they expect to see you this con season?
Yeah, as I said before, check us out on Syrinscape.com, which is Syrinscape. Just Google for it if you like. We will be at Gen Con in August, which is fantastic. We've got a little booth there, and we'll be involved with Paizo up in the Sagamore Ballroom, running some little short encounters and things like that. We'll also be at PaizoCon in Seattle, which we absolutely loved last year. Once again, running just really, really tight little demos of the new content, the new licensed content that will be coming out, which is really, really exciting. We'll also be at Spiel Essen in October in Essen, which is near Dusseldorf in Germany. We've got a lot of fans up in that area, and a lot of them have been nagging us to go, so we're going to go there and have an absolute ball. I'll pull out my university German, which will bring a lot of joy to a lot of people. And we'll also be at PAX Oz in Melbourne in November, which is just started for the first time last year and was absolutely huge and fantastic event. So we will also have a little booth down there. So it's quite busy, actually, and I love it. I really love it. Each of those cons for us, except the one in Melbourne, means at least 30 hours flying both ways for me from Sydney. So so make sure you come and say hi, because I've put in a big effort to come and see you.
Come and say hi with a coffee.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, just thank you all for being our guests tonight. I think this is a very good, excellent episode. And I guess it's just time to sign out. I'm Ryan Costello Jr.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction. All right, Param, you're going to kill the live switch?
Cool. And I'm killing live switch.